Hello, everyone. On this whole tax bill, right from day one, if you notice, it wasn't something that I focused on or spoke about. And one of those videos, or quite a number of those videos that I did during the time that this whole tax bill was being enacted and all of that, I mentioned the fact that it's not my strength. I really don't know much about tasks, and so I usually do not dabble into things that I don't have expertise and knowledge about. Just opinion. So this was something that was clinical, and so I just watch. Even when people will say this, I say, well, I really don't know have much on it because I have not followed what it is. I don't know what it is. I need to be able to engage with something very efficiently and effectively to be able to say, okay, this is how this thing goes. But there is this particular person called Peacock on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Dawisu. And he really has been on this issue of the tax, and he has spoken a lot of times on it. He looks like someone who has really followed the issue as it has gone on. And he says, for the last time, let me address some data boys who keep talking about the so-called House of Rep version of the tax bill as if it's separate from that of Senate and the harmonized version. They are either ignorant of how this particular bill was passed or are deliberately misleading the public. One of the things also, there has been a lot of influencers that were brought in to talk about this tax law, this thing according to them, to educate the public and all of that. So there are many people that have been engaged to go on it. And when this whole issue came out on the fact that, look, what is being gazetted is actually different from what was passed. And some of them, just to mislead the public, just keep saying that, oh no, there's a different one, there's that different one. But this particular Twitter Zina X person says, no, it's not. And I think he has followed it on. And this is part of the things he's saying, that this whole bill was a bit different from the ones that are being passed. So what they did, that people were set up to come together and have a harmonized one. And that was what was put in both houses. That usually you find out that the house we have is version, then when they pass, then they will not harmonize it. But on this one, that the harmonization was done. But let me just read from what he said. He said, yes, under normal circumstances, a bill is debated independently on the floors of the House of Representatives and the Senate. That is the standard legislative procedure that the data boys keep explaining. But the tax bill did not follow that route, as precisely because of how sensitive, heated and contentious it was. It was very heated and contentious. A lot of people said no to the tax law. There were, lawmakers were against it from different regions. There were a lot of things I would say. Then after a while, some people said that, oh, something exchange hand or did not exchange hand. I don't know. Some conversation out there. And then the next thing, the whole thing piped down. In this case, the leadership of the National Assembly adopted an unusual but deliberate approach. 40 senators and 40 members of the House of Representatives were nominated, with each state represented by one senator and one rep member minimum. These 80 lawmakers spent a full week at the Hilton Hotel with logistics sponsored by FIRS, jointly harmonizing the tax bill line by line. I find it a bit this. Why should the logistics be sponsored by FIRS that is going to be a beneficiary of this particular bill? Isn't that like bribery in its own way? That's what even when I read it, that's the thing I was thinking. He said at the end of that exercise, there were no parallel House or Senate version. Both chambers were presented with the same single harmonized tax bill. That identical document was laid before the House of Representatives and Senate, debated and passed by both chambers. This was the version transmitted to the president and subsequently assented to. Definitely not my president. Traditionally, he said, harmonization comes after each chamber has passed its own version. That did not happen here. Lawmakers worked together from the outset to produce one unified bill, and that is what was approved. There is no House version separate from that of the Senate. In this case, it simply does not exist. And I think maybe they had forgotten this particular thing. It's for those who followed. Like I said, I'm not one person that has followed this tax bill to know what is going on or how they did. But you see, they were deliberate in the way that they had gone on with this thing. The real issue, he said, is that this harmonized version, the one passed by both chambers and signed by the president, is not what appeared in the gazetted copy made public. That gazetted version contains alterations that were never approved by the National Assembly. On Thursday, 18th December 2025, after Honorable Abdulsamad Dasuki raised the alarm on the floor of the House, the Speaker announced the setting up of a committee and gave it 1 week to report. On the surface, this sounded reasonable. In reality, it was a convenient way of pushing the issue under the carpet. The National Assembly proceeds on its end-of-year break tomorrow, Tuesday, with the committee's report due next Thursday, which is after they've gone on break. By the time lawmakers reconvene in January, the tax law would already be in force, and the opportunity for meaningful legislative correction would have slipped away. And this is one of the reasons why, for me, I always say, look, Nigerians, if we really want Nigeria to work, we need to ensure that we are populating the National Assembly with people who are patriotic, who are courageous, who actually want Nigeria to work and are going to sit down and put it work. This is the kind of issue that you would expect the National Assembly to say that, look, we are not going on a break. We need to finish this issue. Until this issue is going, we're suspending, our break. The nation, it's on the brink. The nation is being affected here. But hey, these people don't care. All they think about is their own personal interests. What is most telling is the silence from the presidency and from Taiwo Oyedele and his team. Taiwo have spoken, and he spoke a lot of gibberish that doesn't make sense in any way. They have chosen not to address this issue at all, not because it is insignificant, because they do not want to go on record. If no forgery occurred, setting the record straight should be straightforward. They have done so before on issues far less serious than this. Section 4 and 58 of the Constitution vest lawmaking power solely to the National Assembly. Any provision inserted, removed, or altered after passage is unconstitutional, void, unenforceable, and constitutes a clear breach of separation of power doctrine. In short, even if it's a full stop, even if it's for punctuation that you've altered that whole document. That's forgery in a sense. This issue will not be swept under the carpet, and no one will succeed in shutting the people who have listened to Honorable Falake on the harmonization issue. And of course, he put in a video, which we are going to put at the end of this video, to see where they had made this unusual thing to say, look, we are harmonizing this thing before it even gets, before the separate houses now sit on it, not what people have said. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.
A harmonization conference committee was constituted with the responsibility to ensure a final review of the bills and harmonize any differences for onward transmission to the President for his assent. The Harmonization Committee conference took place Thursday, 22nd and Friday, 23rd May 2025. Following exhaustive deliberations, the differences in the bills were unanimously resolved, and the chambers are therefore aligned on a single version of all four distinct bills considered during the conference. Some of the key differences resolved.